From the KIRO 7 Pinpoint Weather Center, meteorologist Claire Anderson.
Sunshine and beautiful 72 degrees in downtown Seattle right now. I'm Lisa Brooks.
Subscribe to us on YouTube for our can't miss clips. KIRO Radio 97.3 FM. News and talk, powered by the Pacific Northwest.
The Big Lead is brought to you by 3010 Weight Loss for Life.
The Dori Monson Show on KIRO Radio. This is The Big Lead.
Oh, yeah, it sure is. Coming to you from the Carter Subaru studio, streaming on Facebook Live. Welcome to The Big Show. And, man, this was one of those Mondays where I could tell last night everything was just coming together. There was so much craziness going on in the news, locally, nationally, that I knew we'd have a lot of stuff to talk with you about as we hit the air today. So, glad you're with us. Let's get right to The Big Lead.
The Big Lead. Top story.
I've mentioned many times that maybe the most damaging aspect of the political culture around here is the absolute determination to make almost everybody feel like a victim. And I think that that is crippling to kids. If you tell kids from the time they're born and every day of their life, you're a victim. You can't do anything unless government takes care of you, unless government controls your life and everybody else's. You will not have a chance to succeed. You need us, government, to take care of you. And as the father of 3 daughters, I found this press conference yesterday morning with our 2 United States senators, the mayor of Tacoma, and women's U.S. soccer captain Megan Rapinoe. It was just one of those moments where I realized, look, thankfully, I think my girls have grown up with a pretty good sense of self and of self-determination, and you achieve your own way in the world. But it just reinforced this culture of victimization where everybody's, and it was so bizarre yesterday, this press conference. So what it was all about was Patty Murray and Maria Cantwell. They are demanding that we get equal pay for the U.S. women's soccer team as what the men get paid. Now, in a couple of minutes, I'll get into just how bizarre, from an economic standpoint, just how bizarre an argument that is. But I'll get to that in a moment. But let's go through some of the sound bites. The things I do for you, man, it's incredible. I had to sit through and listen to this entire press conference, pull cuts from it, so you wouldn't have to go through all this nonsense yourself. So, first of all, here's what we learned. That when the Women's World Cup games were being played, Patty Murray told us,
it was a thrill to watch the national team dominate on the world stage. I think, like most offices in this country, my office was not doing a lot of work during those games.
We weren't doing a lot of work. Why do people like U.S. senators think that it's an appealing message to taxpayers that they and their staffers weren't doing a lot of work during a sporting event? You know what? There are all kinds of sporting events that go on weekday afternoons while I'm doing the radio show. I still have to do my job. I can't half-arse it. I can't just sit around and watch sports when I'm supposed to be doing a radio show. But that's just, a little funny line. Yeah, none of us were working. You were paying us. So then Patty Murray said this.
We're going to keep speaking up. We're going to keep fighting for our athletes and for women everywhere to make sure that whatever you do, wherever you live, no matter the color of your skin or who you love, you get equal pay at work.
You get that? Okay, so first of all, because you're a woman, because of the color of your skin, and because of who you love. So she got a triple victimization in just a couple of seconds there. You're a victim for this. You're a victim for that. You're a victim for that. Everybody's a victim when we're talking about leftists. Okay, let's talk about the ridiculousness of that argument from an economic standpoint. The total prize money for the Men's World Cup is $440 million. For the Women's World Cup, it's $30 million. About 1/14 of what the men get, and that's because it's commensurate with the revenues. In fact, the women get a higher percentage of the revenues than do the men. But because of worldwide television contracts, and the World Cup soccer on the men's side is the most viewed sporting event in the world, even more than the Super Bowl. And there are gigantic multi-billion-dollar worldwide television revenues that go along with that. It's like two senators 2 weeks ago said that they were going to demand equal pay for WNBA players. They were distraught that the maximum salary in the WNBA is less than the NBA minimum. And that's because, again, the men sell out 17 to 20,000 seat arenas. The women usually have to cover the upper bowl because they don't want to look like they have so many empty seats. And I'm a huge women's basketball supporter, fan. Tried to groom a lot of kids in that area. It's not a criticism, but, in the women's soccer, they had a friendly against U.S. boys 15 and under team. And the boys 15 years old and younger, they smoked the U.S. women's national team. And so your interest level, your television ratings, it's commensurate just with the product on the field. And if the best women in the country can't beat a group of 15-year-old and younger boys, then there is a gender gap in talent and ability, and therefore in watchability. So, but Patty Murray says she was going to try to demand equal pay for the women's team. And then she said this.
I believe the only way to truly honor our national team is to pay them with what so clearly they deserve, equal pay for their far more than hard work, equal hard work.
Okay, that's not the way economics works. If you are a participant in an endeavor that has 1/14 the revenues of some other endeavor, you're probably going to get paid less. That's just the way it works. And then Maria Cantwell, it was her turn to talk, and she talked about Megan Rapinoe.
It's so exciting to be here with my colleagues, Senator Murray and Megan Rapinoe. We are cheerleaders for the great victory that you had, and I feel like we're almost welcoming an American hero back to Tacoma, Washington.
That was a rather tepid cheer there. And then the hyperbole.
I believe that this sports moment where you glided across the field will go down as one of the...
Time out. I'll play you the whole cut. The sports moment where you glided across the field. And I thought, as I was watching that, I was thinking, they blighted? Is there some definition of the word blight that I don't know? And I didn't want to make a fool of myself because, there's nothing more I hate than making a fool of myself. So I went to Merriam-Webster's dictionary. Definition of blight. It's what I thought it was. A disease or injury of plants marked by the formation of lesions, withering, and death of parts, such as the great potato blight. So they played like diseased plants, Maria? It's so weird to listen to a United States senator. I mean, I've never thought that we had the greatest minds representing us in the Senate the last several years, but as she watched them blight across the field.
I believe that this sports moment where you glided across the field will go down as one of the all.
I wonder what she meant to say. Alighted? I don't know. I mean, and even that would sound stupid. I don't know what she meant when she said, okay, I got to play the whole cut. Okay, I'm sorry. I keep getting stuck on blighted.
I believe that this sports moment where you glided across the field will go down as one of the all-time greatest sports moments in not just Seattle history, but for the country.
No. I mean, that's a nice sentiment to say in front of them, but no, it's not. It's not the Miracle on Ice in Lake Placid. It's, I mean, you can come up with hundreds and hundreds of greater ones. But then here's one that also rankled me as Maria Cantwell brought up Title IX.
The best thing that ever happened to female sports was Title IX, when we guaranteed women in our school system the equal access to train and be prepared for sports.
Absolutely true. I 100% agree with Maria Cantwell on that. Title IX has been great for girls in school because here's what we know about extracurriculars, whether it's sports or drama, music. But kids who participate in extracurriculars have higher GPAs, lower dropout rates, lower pregnancy rates, great benefits. Now, here's why this is so confusing to hear Maria Cantwell talk about that. Because her left is trying to gut and destroy Title IX. Because here in Washington State, biological boys must be allowed to play on girls' high school sports teams. We are seeing records topple across the country as biological boys are playing girls' sports. In the House of Representatives right now in D.C., there is a bill that would mandate that every state in the union must allow boys to play on girls' high school sports teams. This will effectively, in a few years, end girls' sports in the schools. And people think that that's some hyperbole. It's not. Nobody thought that records were going to topple and that boys were going to be able to podium and state records, set state records in girls' competitions. And now we're seeing that on an appalling basis. So considering that you, Maria Cantwell, and your party are trying to gut Title IX for reasons of political correctness by allowing boys to play on girls' team, don't stand up there and talk about the wondrous benefits of Title IX. Okay, I just have one more thing to say about this press conference yesterday, and this is the one that gets to the heart of how damaging this message is.
You know, as I was sitting there and I was listening to...
Oh, this is the Tacoma mayor, by the way.
You know, as I was sitting there and I was listening to all of you talk, I was thinking to myself, when will there be a day when we don't have to have this conversation? When will there be a day when we don't have to talk about equal pay because we'll just have it?
Okay. Now, as the Tacoma mayor was saying that, Patty Murray was shaking her head with disgust, but in agreement. When are we going to talk about women being treated equally? It was kind of bizarre to hear that from the mayor of Tacoma, who is a woman, and that Patty Murray and Maria Cantwell, oh, I know, this is so horrible. The fact that the two United States senators from our state have been women for, in their cases, of these two individuals, far too long. Because Murray and Cantwell are a perfect example of why we should have term limits. Because they've both run their course. But our United States senators are women. The mayor of Tacoma is a woman. The mayor of Seattle is a woman. And you have the audacity to sit at this press conference and tell girls that women don't have a chance in this country. We've got to make this stop. You peddle this nonsense about pay gaps. In the case of soccer, I told you why it's, it has to be that way because of revenues. And they say, well, the U.S. team, the women make as much revenues because they go further than the U.S. men. The men don't win the World Cup. but they all share in the worldwide television contracts for the World Cup. But you have the audacity to continue peddling this, that women don't have a chance, and to tell little girls that, of how unfair life is. That's a damaging message. It's a crippling message to tell people from the time they're born that they are such victims. What we should be doing is teaching our daughters, raising our kids to be self-sufficient, to realize that, whatever challenges you have, whether it's extreme poverty, something I know a little bit about, or anything else, that you can overcome it by force of your will. But instead, it's always about victimization. Always. And I find that to be as damaging a message as you can possibly tell kids. Next up in the Big Lead.
The Big Lead, Bizarro World.
Speaking of which, because this kind of involves Megan Rapinoe. So a New York Times reporter last week tweeted about the upcoming presidential debate. Jay Inslee's on Wednesday night. And a New York Times reporter tweeted that Jay Inslee's campaign specifically asked, will the national anthem be played before the debate? And the answer is yes. But why was the Inslee campaign asking that? And there's been growing speculation of the possibility. I don't think even Inslee is this crazy. But he is that power hungry. I mean, he knows that he's got no shot in this presidential primary unless he's got some Hail Mary. And there's growing speculation. Would Inslee take a knee for the national anthem before the debate on Wednesday night so that everybody would be talking about him in the country later that night and all day Thursday and Friday? His name would be out there. He'd be the most woke of all the candidates. And let's face it, when he said who he would like to have as his Secretary of State.
My first act will be to ask Megan Rapinoe to be my Secretary of State. I haven't asked her yet, so this one could be a surprise to her.
Okay, Megan Rapinoe, of course, most famous for taking a knee during the national anthem a year ago at World Cup or at pre-World Cup events, national team events. This year she was not allowed to do it, so instead of putting her hand over her heart and singing the anthem like all of her teammates, she just stood with her hands behind her back and her head bowed. And she said that it's in an act of defiance for the country. Well, Jay Inslee apparently loves that so much that without any other qualifications, he's thinking about Megan Rapinoe as his Secretary of State. So why did the Inslee campaign specifically ask if the anthem would be played? And it was the New York Times, not exactly some right-wing outlet, that started all of this speculation. And so we'll see. Is Inslee that crazy? And is he that power-hungry as he sees his presidential campaign continue to get zero traction? Would he do something that desperate? I guess we'll find out about, 64 hours from now. 54 hours from now. And that there is your Big Lead for today.
The Big Lead on KIRO Radio.
Big news for the Seahawks over the weekend. Bobby Wagner signed a contract. Brock Heward usually joins us for the Monday Monson quarterback, but he's on a plane. Danny O'Neill is going to pop on. Tell us the latest what's going on at training camp with the first preseason game a week from Thursday. Straight ahead on the Dori Monson Show.